Logan Paulson here, Commanders fans, with General Manager. You all know who this is, Martin Mayhew, the guy who's building this organization. How you doing?
Doing great.
Are you enjoying the combine process so far?
Awesome. I love every minute of it.
Do you really? Meetings, all the things?
I love it. I love being around these players and getting the opportunity to see those guys in person. You've watched them on film all fall, and just being in their presence, asking them questions, getting to know who they are as people. That's a lot of fun.
Ron talked about that yesterday in his presser. How important is that, just to get to know the guy and building that relationship before the draft process, before the draft happens?
It really is important. And Ron preaches a lot about family and about culture and how you want to build your team with the right kind of people. So it's really important to us, especially as to find out who these guys are, where they come from, and what motivates them.
Yeah, and obviously you're not a spring chicken. You've been around the block. You've been a part of building organizations in the past. Specifically, Detroit comes to mind. In that situation, how was it taking an organization that didn't win a game to a playoff contending team?
Yeah, it was a challenge.
Absolutely.
It was a real challenge. It took us 3 years. We started off 0-16, then we got to 2-14, I think 6-10, and finally the playoffs. So we really built it from the ground, whereas in this situation, there's a lot of quality pieces already in place. A little bit different building this team and being a part of that than it was doing that in Detroit.
And obviously with Detroit, you got Matthew Stafford, kind of a big piece of that. Everyone's talking about how important the quarterback position is. How important was that to that organization and kind of turning that whole thing around?
Oh, it was critical. It was critical. As we're seeing now, all these Super Bowls, what we're seeing is the elite quarterbacks who are leading these teams to championships, who are at least playing at an elite level. And that's really important. So we're looking right now and trying to upgrade that position. Taylor Heineke's been outstanding. Great appreciation for him, really one of the hardest working guys that we have, a great leader, great teammate. But our starting quarterback played 16 plays last year. Taylor was our backup, played the rest of last season. So we really appreciate the effort that he put in, but we feel the need to upgrade there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously with Matthew Stafford, old CBA, those massive contracts for rookie quarterbacks, did that impact your ability to kind of flesh out that roster and build around him totally?
There was some impact, but it impacted everybody. Everybody dealt with it. We had an opportunity to find a way around it. We had two really great players, actually three, him and Dominican Sue, Calvin Johnson.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I think we were able to juggle those three guys and add pieces around those guys. Pretty good. But in the long run, we didn't get it done. Got close, I think, but we didn't get it done in the long run. And somebody else is doing it, and I certainly wish them the best.
Yeah. So I'm a history major by trade, so I always look at history and say, how does this inform future decisions? How does that experience in Detroit inform the current situation in terms of free agent, drafting a guy? Does that impact you at all?
Oh, it does. It's really about that balance. It's about, making sure you recognize what your needs are and address those needs. And that's going to be key for us this year.
Right.
Obviously quarterback is one of the biggest ones, but we have several others that we plan on working on.
Yes.
And we got to make sure we have some balance in that, whether free agency, draft, how we approach those things, and how we make that work all within the salary cap.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, obviously we're going out and getting a big priority free agent. That's a big salary cap number. You must feel really good about the pieces here already, like you said at the top, to kind of feel that you can you make a trade like that.
Yeah, well, I think Coach has done a great job here the last couple of years, and the personnel staff prior to us. Our defensive line was pretty much set coming in.
Right.
We got a great group of young, talented players there. We can kind of build that as our foundation and build around those guys, I think. So we're really focused on this offseason, just finding that right balance. The quarterback's going to be critically important, and that's going to probably help as far as determining what else we can do.
Right.
But we're kind of working through that process right now.
One of the things about this draft that I think is super interesting after the COVID year, to me, it seems like a very dense draft. So, trading out of the first round is not necessarily the worst thing in the world because they've got very talented people all the way kind of into the sixth round potentially. Does that inform that trade potentially of the first round pick?
Yeah, sure. Dense is a great word for it because I don't think it's particularly great at the very, very top, but I think you will have quality guys with starter type talent into the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity there for all those mid-round picks to end up being quality players for us.
And how important is that? Everyone talks about the first round and how important that is, and everyone understands you get your blue chippers there. But I feel like the rosters are made from those middle rounds. And last year, you guys did an excellent job of landing some quality starters. Obviously, Cosme, St. Juice injured, but when he was playing, did an excellent job. Bates was another guy that really stood out to me. How important is those mid-round evaluations?
Yeah, well, that's really the core. For your whole football team is that core group of guys who are that mid-level talent who really set your base talent-wise. And then you're going to have your superstars at the top.
Right.
But the core has to be deep. And you look at these championship teams, everybody talks about Matthew Stafford, the way that he played, Odell Beckham Jr., but there are a bunch of really, really good mid-round picks on that Rams football
that they've hit on, right?
That they've hit on, yeah, and that's really important.
Because they're an interesting case study, I think, because they no first-round capital. That's kind of been their MO for a long time, but they always hit seemingly on their mid-round talent, and it just shows you how it's able to flush out a roster around these players like you're saying.
Exactly. That's your young, cheap talent base, and guys that you can train in a way that you want your culture to be built. That's where those guys come from.
I think that's fantastic. And then with regards to the young guys, how do you see those guys from last year's class moving forward into the next football season?
Big year for all those guys. As you know, players develop over time. We're looking at Jamin, tremendously talented athletically. He's going to grow this year, play better. De'Ami Brown's going to play better. Cosme obviously was injured part of last year. He played very well for us.
Did a great job.
Yeah. We're looking forward to seeing those guys. John Bates, you mentioned. There's a bunch of guys in that draft class that we expect to take a big step this year.
And it seems like you guys did such an outstanding job with those mid-rounds. How important is the combine for finding those gems and getting to know those personalities that say, this is the right fit culturally, this is the right fit from a talent standpoint?
Combine's very important, but also the pro days.
Right.
Also the work that our area guys did throughout the fall, going into those college campuses, watching those guys practice, coming back, writing reports on those guys, the character reports on those guys, football character, what those guys bring. So the whole process is important. Going back to last fall, we started this process last summer, actually, at the Blesto meetings when we got a kind of preview on what the guys who were going to be seniors were like. So we got that viewpoint. We got the fall reports. Now we're here at the Combine. We'll get the pro days. We'll have our draft meetings. So the entire process is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that people need to understand is you guys are aggregating so much data when it comes to these players, right, to kind of narrow down those decisions. And how important is it making sure you have the correct staff in place to get that done?
Yeah, that's critically important, obviously. And we have a very experienced staff. So, myself, Marty, Eric Stokes, Tim Gribble, Chris Polian, and all of our area guys. So the staff really brings it all together. And those guys' contacts on the road are really important. And also our pro side. Our pro department is very experienced as well. So Donnie Warren working there and Cap. So we got some really good guys in our scouting department.
Martin, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I learned a lot. Thank you so much for your time. Great stuff there. Hope you all enjoyed that.